All right, well, welcome. You are at the Fingerprint Process for California Credentials webinar. My name is Casey Choate, and I am the Credentials and Live Scan Supervisor for the San Diego County Office of Education. And with me today, I have Monica Robinson, who is my lead credential technician. So if you have questions or things that you want answered, you can put it into the question and answers box. Our chat is not functional right now, so please use the question and answers for any questions you might have. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Let's see. Okay, so I always try to start with a little bit of a funny. This basically shows that, even though you may have to get a background check, it's actually not that bad. Okay, so let's talk about live scan fingerprinting. So live scan fingerprinting is something that we do in California. It's basically the technique and the technology that we use by law enforcement agencies and private facilities to actually capture the fingerprints. I'm sure if you've ever been fingerprinted in another place or another state, you've done that traditional ink and paper. Well, it's definitely it's difficult, you can't get good prints. The nice thing about the live scan fingerprinting is that you can put it on there, you lift it right away, and they submit it immediately. So it's a much more efficient way of processing fingerprints. So California law actually says that all individuals who actually want to receive a credential in California, they must have background check from the Department of Justice and the FBI. And so I'm sure you've been fingerprinted a million times. If you're in education, you're going to get fingerprinted multiple times because we want to make sure that everybody is safe, that our children are safe. But by ed code, we are required to actually fingerprint you and do a background check to make sure that there's nothing on your background check that would preclude you from working in a classroom with students. All right, so what if you've been arrested in the past? Ed code dictates which offenses are actual denials. So there's a couple of them where if it's more considered serious or violent, those actually are prohibited. So one of the things that the commission does and that my department does is that we do review all factors. It's not just an automatic usually. So how long ago was the offense? Do you have prior records? Do you have references? Did you go through rehabilitation? There's a lot of different things that we look at when we are determining if you are going to be accepted, if that arrest is really going to impact your credential or your access to the clearinghouse. So here we have basically the main three fingerprint types that you will do when you're in education. So the first one is the state level clearance, and they use a form called the 41LS. So that is required to get the state level clearance needed for the Commission on Teacher Credentialing to do either your traditional background check. A lot of times you need this for, well, you absolutely need this for any type of credentials. Those, if you're going to be getting a sub permit, anything like that, you do need to have the 41LS live scan form. The second level is something called clearinghouse. Clearinghouse is a special program. It's a county level clearance. That is basically, it used to be that you would go and let's say you wanted to work for you wanted to substitute for 3 different districts. It used to be that you would go in and you would actually have to be fingerprinted for all 3 of those different districts. Now we have now established a clearinghouse where you get fingerprinted one time and all 3 of those districts have access to those results. So that is the clearinghouse. That is typically used for when you are going to multiple districts. And then the other one that we're going to talk about is employment. That is your local level clearance. If you are going to be hired as a full-time employee of a district, they usually want you to go and do employment fingerprints specifically. And those results only go back to the employers. So that may be needed for employment, but it's not always necessary. So don't go and just automatically ask for that. So I'm going to talk about each individual level. So the 41LS live scan form is where we go in, you will have to be fingerprinted. You will do a background check with the Department of Justice as well as the FBI. So that's all done on the back end. You go and you do the fingerprints, one time. The results go to the Department of Justice and then also to the FBI. And then it basically gets cleared at that point. Now, one of the things that you do the 41LS, if you're in a credentialing program and you are needing to do a background check or you're going to do your student teaching, you do need to have what they call a certificate of clearance. So do you really need it? Basically, it depends. So it's a certificate that you can provide to prove that you've done a background check, that you've gone through the Department of Justice and the FBI. It is required for all first-time applicants who need a temporary county certificate, which is basically a temporary document while we're waiting for the commission to process your application. And it is required for all in-state applicants beginning their student teaching. So these are the two main reasons why you would get a certificate of clearance. Now, if you already hold an existing credential in California, either a credential or a permit, that could be a sub permit, it could be a child development permit, it could be a traditional credential. If you already hold one, you do not also need a certificate of clearance. However, we do need to have those documents registered in the county for us to be allowed to basically release pay for that. We need to have the document or a certificate of clearance on file. So let's talk about the Fingerprint Clearinghouse. So as I mentioned before, the Clearinghouse is this place where all of the fingerprints can be housed and other agencies can use or look up those results. So we established our clearinghouse in San Diego in 1998, and we've been running it ever since. And it's usually used for temporary, hourly people, substitute teachers, any classified or certificated employees. And you have the ability to do DOJ, Department of Justice level, or you can even do the higher level, which is the FBI background check as well. So that's going to be federal. The clearinghouse basically is a place that employers can go online and check your results and verify that you have been cleared. Now, they don't see your results. All they know is that you have either been cleared or you're not cleared. It's one or the other. So even if you had a conviction or an arrest in the past, they would not have access to that information at this point. They can only see that you actually cleared and were accepted into the clearinghouse. And we do look at every result. So if it's we call it a no record response, which means there's nothing out there, it's just clear. Those automatically go into the clearinghouse. But if we do come back with an arrest, we do look at that. We verify on Ed Code, is there something that we absolutely cannot accept? And then basically at that point, we either allow you into the clearinghouse or we deny the clearinghouse. And if we do deny it, we will notify you and give you the option to come and meet with us and explain the situation and just make sure that maybe we have all the information. All right, and then the next or the last type of forms that we're going to look at is the local level clearance. That's for employment. So that's where you are now going to be hired as a full-time classified or a full-time teacher in the districts, and they want to have their own level fingerprints. And because what will happen is if they have their own employment fingerprints, then they will be the ones receiving the conviction reports. Or if you get arrested again, they're going to be the ones that get the subsequent arrest reports. So a lot of districts want to have their own fingerprint clearance in addition. So sometimes they want you to have all three of those. So just be aware that in education, you're going to do a lot of fingerprinting. So these are just two examples of what the forms look like. You can get all of these forms on our website. You can always go in and get those forms. We do offer those services as well. If you wanted to come in and get fingerprinted, you can come into our office and get it done. You also can go to any other live scan facility in San Diego. They do have to be approved by the Department of Justice, and I do have a slide that I'll show you in a moment. So in terms of the processing, so when you are getting fingerprinted, you are going to need valid identification. So unfortunately, sometimes we have people come in and they have an expired driver's license or some sort of expired ID. Unfortunately, by law, we are not allowed to accept that. So we do need to have a, either a California driver's license or ID or an out-of-state driver's license. We can use a passport. As it does have to be, there's a list of specific documents that we can use, but these are the traditional ones because they do have personal information as well as a photo. So you will need your forms, and then you will also, for our office, we do require that you actually have to have a money order or cashier's check for the fees. We are working on getting credit card processing soon, but at this point, we are still working on that. So if you are not able to come into our office, because right now we're about 3 weeks booked for appointments, you can go to an alternative live scan location. So basically, because like I said, if you need to get fingerprinted right away, let's say they want you to start on Monday and you can't find an appointment, the best option would be is to just go ahead and go to another live scan location. The results still come to us as the clearinghouse, so it doesn't impact that. And I've put a link in there and this will be available later, that you can find a location at the Department of Justice website. So what happens next? You've done your fingerprints. You came in, you did what you were supposed to. Now what happens? So typically it does take about 7 to 10 days. Now, there's times during the year where we get them in one day, very quick. Other times it takes a little bit longer. So if you can, try to do things ahead of time so that you have time to clear everything and get it ready. Now, the most important thing is you actually don't receive a response. You will not receive something saying, okay, you're cleared, you can go work. Unfortunately, you just have to go out and start applying for jobs and doing the things that you're supposed to, and the employers will check to verify that you are cleared. If you are applying for a credential or a permit through our office, you'll want to bring a copy of the completed fingerprint forms with you, because we do submit those to the Commission on Teacher Credentialing with your application.
One of the most popular questions that we get, by the way, on the live scan facilities is, can I do this out of state? Can I do this where I'm currently at? And the answer would be no, you have to do it in California.
Correct. Yeah, unfortunately, the systems do not connect. So you do, if you are, let's say you're coming from out of state and you're going to be coming to California to work, unfortunately, you do have to come to California to do a live scan. We've had people literally drive in and go to one of the locations at the border, get that done, and then go back home to finish the rest of the process. So you do need to do that. Some people also ask, well, can I just do fingerprint cards? You can, however, it takes 12 weeks for those to clear. So considering that it takes, potentially, 5 to 10 days for a live scan fingerprint to clear, we always suggest that you go ahead and just wait until you get to California to actually fingerprint. And then that way it's going to go much faster. So this is a web page that the Department of Justice offers, where you can look to see, was your application or your fingerprints, were they submitted, and maybe where the status is. So you can actually go to this website and check the status of your fingerprint results. It doesn't actually tell you if you're cleared or not, but it will tell you if they received it. Because sometimes what happens is on our end, we'll hit submit, but somewhere along the way, either it didn't connect, we were missing something on the form, something. So if you go to this webpage and you enter your information and it says not received, you need to contact us right away, because there might have been something that happened on our end that we need to fix. All right, so another place that you can look for results is if you have applied for some sort of a certificate of clearance. If you have a profile on the Commission on Teacher Credentialing website, you can actually see when they've received your fingerprints. So if you log into your account, or you can even do the search for educator, both locations show if the fingerprints are cleared or not. So you can see I've highlighted it right there. It says fingerprint status complete, no action required. So that's really important because let's say you have a credential that you have let expire. So let's say you've let the credential expired, you've gone to do something else for a while, and you come back 2 years later and you think, okay, I want to get my credential up and running again. Well, if you were to go to this web page, it would say not complete, because after 18 months of an expiration of a credential, you now have to be fingerprinted again. So you can check to see if you need to be fingerprinted by going here. You can also, we can look you up and all that in our office, but this is the easiest way, is to look it up yourself on the commission's webpage. All right, so let's talk about those clearinghouse prints. So the clearinghouse fingerprints are the ones that are the ones that go across all the different districts and the charters. So we usually tell people that you do not receive anything when you go through the clearinghouse fingerprints. We usually get our results in about 2 to 5 days. It's very, very quick. And we enter that information into a database on that's accessible by all of our clearinghouse members. Now, not every district is a member of the clearinghouse. Some of the smaller ones like to do their own fingerprints. Some of the bigger ones like to do their own thing. San Diego Unified, for example, they're not part of the clearinghouse because they have such a large organization. They want to have their own fingerprints in-house. So, so not every employer is going to automatically be part of the clearinghouse, but I would say a very large portion of the county is part of the clearinghouse. So once you get fingerprinted, your employers can look you up and verify that you have been accepted to the clearinghouse. So at this point, they look you up either by your name, your social security number, and then they can see if you've been cleared. And once you've been cleared, you would be able to start employment as long as you've met the other requirements. And that's pretty much it at this point. So we do have some resources for you. The County Office of Education, that's our link. We also have the Commission on Teacher Credentialing and the Department of Justice. And so all of these different links will give you information about fingerprinting and credentials. So Monica, do we have any questions?
No questions at this time. So
Okay.
we will go ahead and get off of this webinar, and thank you for your attendance, for being here, and hopefully you learned what you needed about fingerprints. This resource will be available. This webinar will be available also for viewing again if need be. And thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.